Yeah, so thank you, Samau. Thanks, ECS, for this opportunity. As you highlighted, my session today will talk about how do we today, in today's data computing world, modernize our enterprise data landscape, right? And then the key theme will be around managing data. I mean, we keep managing data on a very reactive basis. So we're trying to see how we can actually do it very proactively to drive the deeper and quicker insight. So that's the theme of today's presentation. Can you see my screen change before I proceed? I just want to check.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Confirming.
So, as we all know that analytics is the key source of competitive advantage, right? But essentially, it is also very, very important to ensure that we are actually moving out from managing data to kind of driving insight. In my view, with whatever little experience I have, as Mao mentioned, I have observed that analytics and the requirement and the expectations around analytics is shifting big time philosophically. So, if you look at early 2000 and all that, we were talking about finding a solution to a problem that we already know, and we are in an age today where we are actually talking about finding a problem that we are not aware of today rather than solving that particular problem, and that's very, very important. So it's all about, I mean, we have a session just before this where we're talking about data science and all that. So experimentation to kind of uncover new insight about how our businesses are progressing has become very, very critical today. Now, what I mean by that is if you divide the last 30, 35 years from a data context, I divide them into three important phases. If you look at the first phase, essentially, that was the time when we are all building our own operational systems, and it was a very silo based approach, but very relevant one for the times, for those times, right? So you have for banking customer, you had a core banking system, separate ownership, separate processes, managing the same customer from a specific context perspective. Then you have CRM, then you have a lot more other things that kept on adding, and that created a lot of silo application ecosystem. And then you talk about the second wave or second phase, which is 2.0, which where people started looking at the enterprise data values coming from all these respective operational systems that were established in the phase 1. And it was very much focus or purpose driven kind of an objective where we are aware about what we are trying to see, what we are trying to analyze. So we had a list of subjected KPIs and we're working towards that, to kind of find the solution to all those problems and on a regular basis. Come 3.0, with this digital transformation taking front lines, right? So what's happening is data is powering digital transformation. So it's not anymore about nice to have analytical and reporting KPIs that we need to have to show that we are analytical savvy. It's all about becoming much more intelligent about what we have in our ecosystem, as in from a business perspective, looking at the data, trying to uncover new truths, new unknown issues that we were not aware of before, and then kind of bringing them into the main analytical mainstream for a regular maintenance and monitoring perspective. So I think we are living in the 3.0, or rather we are going beyond this, where we will have next 3 4 years we will talk about more and more of automation in our part of the world as well. So driving value out of the understanding that we have from the tremendous set of data sets that we have from our organization, and then use it to our advantage to kind of automate certain processes. So I think this is how I see a generational market disruption which is happening, and we have to be very much aligned to these changes that's happening in the market. So it's not about providing a technology solution. So at Oracle, we believe that we need to align our offerings with that of the expectation that customer is having today in the market. So it has to be very realistic, expectation and realistic offering. So that's the key message. Now, if you look at digital transformation, what is actually, there are three key pillars. There are many things, but I think in my view, there are three key pillars here. The first thing is, if you look at, I think my friend from VMware was also mentioning about IoT and the connected devices, the kind of data which is being generated to fight and to uncover information and insight from those things. It's very, very critical. So you need to really first look at data creation. Data creation bubble is like huge. It's happening everywhere, we all know, right? So whichever vertical we talk about, data is there tremendous. We have to be very, very careful about picking and managing this data infrastructure, data which is being created, use it to our advantage, understand and learn certain things. Important to again unlearn a lot of things that we were doing for a lot of times, right? So, and then kind of use it effectively in our downstream applications to drive certain business values. I think that's very, very important. So if you look at it it was predicted by Gartner that by 2020 and beyond, you will have 2.5 million terabyte of data which will be generated every day, right? I think it has crossed even that. Somewhere I was reading it's like more than 3.6 terabyte today per day, right? So that's critical. There are many connected devices and we all operate on that, right? So our behaviors and everything. Next is the data exploration, that explore that's happening with the 5G technology coming and taking the front shape, right? So that is enabling more mobile value, more devices coming, lower latency is actually kind of driving that growth. And that's another way of looking at this kind of data explore that's happening in the current context, right? Of course, the important thing is on AI ML. Now it is about uh, finding the value, finding the insight from the data that we have. We have to run all these experimental algorithms, and I think in my view it is very important that we should not start moving data from one place to another place many times to kind of achieve this objective. Instead, what we should do is we should move the processing back to where data resides today, and then entire data architecture and data strategies in our customer places, according to Oracle's recommendation, what we suggest is we should actually move our processing to where we have the data today, and don't actually work other way around. So I think we'll talk about that in subsequent slides. So I think I mentioned some of this. Let me just reiterate. All of us understand and accept that data today has become strategic asset. It is no more nice to have thing that we will do data reporting and all that. We do have different kind of thing happening, and then we are just depend. We are running our business essentially on data, right? So that's what is happening. There's certain challenges which is actually happening with this change. You will see more and more of different kind of workloads that's being expected out of the data platforms that we have today, right? And then not only that, we are seeing different personas, different kind of consumers trying to consume data in their own specific way. So whether you have a senior management looking at some of the drill down reports, whether you have a operational guy looking at a report which is a very flat report BI kind of thing, or you have full-blown data science team sitting and trying to unlearn and uncover a lot of hidden insight using the AI ML libraries and then associated data ecosystem things. And then also you have people trying to take action on real time fast data basically. So how do you actually take action the moment you actually get data generated at your endpoints? You actually understand that with the learning that you have from the historical context, you actually find and fine tune that in a process flow, right? So there are different kind of consumption that's happening with different kind of personas trying to exploit the data to their own advantage, right? And then of course the third point is very clear. We are actually having tremendous volume of data which is being generated. We just talked about that. And to me, big data set is nothing about is nothing more than but about correlating the transactional information that we have essentially about our customers, and joining that with the behavioral or the interaction data that the customer is leaving across our various channels, our customers various channels, and then trying to find some sense out of it. I think it's very, very important, right? So with that in mind, you have to also look at there are new regulations coming from the statutory bodies, You have IFRS in insurance, you have, a lot of, HIPAA in healthcare, a lot of things happening, right? So we need to also take care of that. So these data centric regulations also will drive the kind of data architecture, security consoles, and all these things that we will actually kind of create on top of the modern data platform ecosystem, right? Last but not the least, and it's very, very important to me, I've worked in this area for almost 25 years. In the beginning, I could see that when your customer is looking at a different kind of a report. I just give you a simple example. I was actually working with a project in Unilever, right? And we had to make some simple changes from a reporting perspective, but that needed us to actually have 30 to 35, 45, days of work to kind of, incorporate new data sets, new entity elements, do transformation and everything. So it was a very, very, how do I say, it's a very constrained way of looking at analytics, whereby the customer is looking at some fast way of doing, a different view of the same kind of a KPI, but we are actually not having that approach. So flexibility was not there, eligibility was not there. So I think all of these things are actually changing today. It's becoming, very important, paramount. So any modernization activity around the data ecosystem should take care of all these challenges and incorporate it into the offering that, a customer or a vendor or a partner will actually create for a specific business objective, right? Now, in the same line, if you look at it, if you go back late 90s, mid of 2000, right, we had, reporting BI capabilities. It was a nice to have thing. That's my view. I mean, you can have a different view, but what I have observed till 2004, 2005 is everybody was actually treating BI and all these things as a very nice to have thing, right? And that was because customers or the consumer data consumers were not exposed to different way of looking at their data sets to their own advantage, right? So that changed. If you look at the way technology evolved, people started getting more and more insight about the data that they are actually looking at. So it started from Excel sheet, it went to some BI tools and all that. It came to drill down capability, it came down to predictive analytics, all the tools available in the market, right? So essentially today, if you see, the data consumer has become much, much more mature. So his expectation is also changed. He's no more like you give him a report and you change the report tomorrow and he'll consume it. He also expects you to give him self-service capability. He also expects you to give him, a raw level information that he can run his analytical algorithms on, right? So there are many things happening on that front, right? So if you look at this, your data platform modernization should also take care of such data consumer expectations, which actually has a very broad range, starting from BI up to the augmented reality, AI, IoT kind of thing, hyper personalization kind of thing, real time recommendation engines coming, right? Behavioral analytics, where you actually join the customer's interaction data with the transaction data and kind of understand your customer much better, deeper segmentation, and all this kind of stuff, right? So, this is another way of looking at what's happening with the advent of technology, with the maturity and with the exposure that's coming to the business users and the end users of analytics. The expectations is increasing, and then we actually have to look up to it, and then match up to that requirement, right, or expectation rather. Now, and this is purely my personal observation. I have seen most companies, data still remains an underused and underappreciated asset, right? So people are investing in reporting and BI technology solutions. A lot of companies, this is from a report from IDC, right? So a lot of these companies have not achieved their anticipated return on investment for these technology solutions. Reasons can be many, right? So depending on how you have started adopting these technologies, or whether you have just looked at matching it to your competitors, landscape, or this kind of thing. Everybody has their own individual problems. So we are living in a world where our problems are not exactly same as the others' problems. So we need to really be very proactive in defining the data strategy, the way we are trying to create our modern data platform, and then the associated ecosystems. So in essence, the analytical capabilities needs to match the business value outcomes that the customers actually keeping as their agenda, right? So this is a fact, and we are seeing a lot of people are correcting it. A lot of things are correcting. It's not about technology is changing and we should just go and adopt the technology. Look at where you stand today. Look at what you need to add to the capability that you already have on an analytical side, and then go to the next level of maturity. Yeah. So, what's preventing such companies to unlock the value of analytics? I was thinking about it, right? So, I think one of the things which the quote I came from Albert Einstein is very, very accurate, right? Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted, right? So, it's not about defining your KPIs, your approach in advance, and then just do everything without even thinking that whether this is going to impact our business metrics or not. So I think there has to be a proper assessment of what we need to assess and how we need to assess, and then decide about the approach towards that, right? So that's very, very important. So some of the key challenge and improvement areas, a lot of text here, for sorry for that, but let me just highlight some of them, right? So predefined and calculated metrics. What I mean by that is we all had in past standard set of BU KPIs. So you're talking about bank or talking about telcos, you have a set of KPIs basically depending on different functional capabilities that you want to look from an analytical perspective, right? And then the data architecture was an afterthought. So you have a business requirement, you just go and start building, extract data and all that, transform it, model it, and then start running, reports on top of it. So that was our initial approach way back in early 2000, right? And then data architecture was an afterthought. We never thought that data has to be kind of brought in first, bring the data in, and then start having iterative development for your iterative business use cases. So in turn, what used to happen is agility was a big casualty. So functional users will come to you, to your top business guys will come to you and to the IT team and ask about some very small changes. And because the way we had architected our data landscape, we had to ask them 30 days or 60 days and all that, and then they will get frustrated, right? So agility was a big casualty. Agility was not there in the initial phase of analytics, right? Data exploration, people found it very challenging for various reasons, right? So for reasons like constraints around security, self-service capability was missing and all this kind of stuff. And then you cannot just create your own stuff. You have to just depend on the IT team to kind of create a new artifact and stuff like that. So it was very, very constrained in that way. And then inability to validate insight. What I mean by that is, if you look at certain KPIs. In my experience, I have seen in one of the bank in Singapore when I was working, right, where you have a set of reports, KPIs, and the measurement, and then the transformation logics for it, and it was very much confusing between different teams, right? So there was no standard way of defining the KPIs, parameters, the entities, attributes, and everything. It was very much functional driven, right? So if a credit risk team is looking at a particular measure in one way, maybe the marketing guy is not looking at that way. So it was not enterprise wide kind of a definition. So that's a big challenge, right? So and then what you need to validate, what you need to look at from a source perspective, all of that was missing, right? So that's one area. The third, I think I highlighted on that, so I'll not talk too much on that now, but it's very important. So agility is slow and hesitant execution, right? So if you have a fixed and standard approach, you are forcing the build to analyze, certain end user KPIs. You will be in this trap whereby you have to always go back and relook at what you have done, and that actually kind of creates a big problem. And a lot of wish list with a quick turnaround from a BIO, business improvement opportunity perspective, will be left far behind. So that's very difficult thing. The fourth thing is faster and new gen insight expectation, right? So the consumer of analytics, as I mentioned, are getting more aware, more mature, right? About what is possible out of the ecosystem, right? And similarly, the ROI, return on investment, is the expectations are increasing, and everybody wants to deploy a solution yesterday, right? So that's the key thing, right? So you need to consider all these challenges while defining your modern data platform ecosystem, whether you're actually starting from scratch or you're working with your customer or you're yourself trying to do it for your own ecosystem, which you have done it for last 15-20 years, and you want to kind of go to the next level, become very flexible, become very agile, have a very unified security kind of thing. And then all of these things important from a technical perspective. But what is even more important, in my view, is creating a culture around data, you know, improvement. That it's a proactive approach. So you have to really look at your data strategy, data management, everything holistically. So maturity of data teams to be continuously improved, not from a technology perspective, but from a design, from architecture perspective. Data governance and architecture today is becoming very, very important. So it has to be, always in your mind before you actually jump into any of the project, because that way you can also actually, have a very, very, very compelling TCO. So suppose you're doing something in silos, and you don't have actually a proper strategy in place, you will do same thing multiple times. Compared to that, if you have a proper governance in place, if you have a CTO-led organization, you actually define about your data lake entry first, then you have a downstream application, data warehouses and stuff like that, which is a very seamless and integrated kind of a way, and that's very important. It is only possible only and only if you have a data culture improvement that's happening within your organization. And in my view, CDO organization is becoming very, very important. In my observation, I'm seeing across the verticals, people are trying to put more focus on the CDO organization, and that's the right way to go forward. So what will happen is, but when you actually start looking at a data driven approach, you will improve on this journey, by step, right? So if you look at sophistication of intelligence, the way it increases, it actually gets you much and more of competitive advantage. So you start with the reports, data collection and stuff like that. So I think if you look at this slide, you need to really focus on your strategy. A lot of time people tell me, Sheel, you talk about strategy a lot, but I think I've learned it with my failures, right? Where you need to really first focus on the data strategy, and with the data strategy understanding, you will actually define the right data architecture, design principles, and everything, right? Which I'll touch on some of them in my next few slides. But I think it's very, very important to align your strategy with the business objectives, and then take smaller steps towards your end goal, right? So that's very, very important. In that process, you will mature your analytical capability slowly to the most higher level, right? This is not only a recommended way. I just brought this slide to just explain one of the Nirvana state of sample view, right? So look at a logical view of analytical data platform. I'm not talking about all these green, red, and blue thing as separate platforms. I'm depicting it as a capability, right? So in this specific example, if you look at the left side ecosystem, which is your operational system, both traditional as well as the multi-structured ecosystem, both in batch mode, integration as well as the real time for fast data, you have to actually have a logical data platform ecosystem, maybe a data reservoir, maybe in ADW, maybe certain data marts on top of it, and then you have a discovery platform. I always look at this as a single logical view kind of thing. And then of course you have the associated ecosystem from left, which is data engineering, ETL, ELT, and all that, the whole platform management part of it, data hybrid cloud deployment, data security part of it, architecture and standard basic principles, all that, and then on the right side you have different way of consuming the data depending on what's your requirement. So what essentially you're doing is you are actually, if you look at it, to just simplify this slide, what we are doing is we are actually bringing data once, right? So try to get the data once to your data landscape ecosystem, and then start creating iterative data applications. So by doing that, what you're doing is you're saving a lot of money on your effort for individual projects. Suppose this is not the recommended way at one of the customer place. What you will do is you will go back looking at your business objective. Say for example, you're trying to build for a telco CDR analytics, right? And you go back and look at what are the data I need to bring it and for that specific purpose, and you just create that data pipeline, you create all of those things for that specific right side data application, right? Again, at CRM based analytics or some other things is actually happening on this for the same customer, you will do the same thing again and again, right? So If you look at it, if you have a single place of bringing the data, single place of creating, single place of transforming it, your consumption becomes very easy. So any new iterative expectation from this data in platform landscape will become very, very easy. So I'm saying it's not about technology, it's about how we adopt technologies, how we actually kind of link them with each other. So today's session, I'll focus more on the central part, which is the data platform part of it. And from Oracle, we do have end-to-end solution. But today we talk about more on modernizing. How do I modernize this central part, which is the data platform, and what are the key areas, key considerations I should have in my mind when actually I go to the next level, right? So let's talk about this central component, which is the data platform. And I say, I just repeat it, logical data platform, right? Now, what are the key considerations? I was thinking about it just before this presentation, and I think there are many, right? But to me, I think our platform should be capable enough from a technical perspective to to store and to process multi-structured data ecosystem, right? Why? Because our customers, in past we used to do analysis or reporting on our customers' transactional data that we had in our internal systems, right? For bank, core banking, and all that, right? But today, if you look at it, banks have multiple channels. So if I'm actually a banking customer for bank A, I go to that bank and I have a savings account, right? And I'm looking for a loan. So I do have many channels where I can go and kind of apply for my new loan application, personal loan, for example, right? And make a call to the customer center, contact center, and I start talking about my requirements and stuff like that. So there is one trace I'll leave over there in the contact center. I somehow didn't feel comfortable giving certain details that was being asked by the contact center guy. I go back to other channel, which is my mobile banking, or maybe internet banking, or maybe branch visit, right? So there are various ways I'm going for the same application. So I'm leaving my trace across various things. Some of them structured, some of them multi-structured. I normally don't call it unstructured or semi-structured. I feel it's multi-structured. Everything has got a structure somehow, right? So your platform should be capable enough to store these kind of data sets and then to be able to even process them, right? So that's one thing. Second, agility. You have to have agile platform. I cannot just have a platform and then customer or my end user will come and ask me, Sheel, can you actually give me a different view of this metrics that I'm looking at? I'll say, wait, man, and I'll give me another 3 months or 6 months of time. No more. They're not going to accept it, right? Third, flexibility in terms of deploying new applications. Not only that, flexibility in deploying your application on premise, on private cloud, or on the public cloud, or on all of them, right? So that's very, very important. Scalability. Now, scalability not only in terms of data scalability or processing scalability, but scalability also in terms of functional scalability. So today you have something, tomorrow you actually have, according to your data strategy, you want to go to the next level. Your platform should be futuristic enough to handle that functional scalability tomorrow as well, right? Fifth thing is data centricity. What I mean by that, let me explain. Data centricity is, if you're looking at making your customer, or if you're the customer, you're trying to actually make your customer, and you're trying to become very customer centric organization, right? For example, you need to understand your customer much better. Customers' behavior, customers' real-time, informations, customers' location information, customers' buying patterns, customers, how customer is transiting, how customer is being is churning, what are the reasons behind it. So to stop the customer churn, to kind of onboard more customers, to make your customer much more profitable for you, all of these things, you need to understand customer in a very detailed way, right? And data centricity to me is about understanding the customer to the lowest level possible. And what do I do? What do I mean by that is, you need to correlate customers' transactional data that you have for that specific customer and merge it with the interaction traces that customer is leaving across external and internal channels, and then correlate it and try to make sense out of it by using your AI and ML capability that you have in your database, or your reporting capabilities and stuff like that, right? For that, one thing you need to keep in mind is the data in motion also is very important, right? If you look at it, flexibility in terms of being flexible to kind of store the data on the same place, and you don't have to go each time back to your respective operational systems. So you need to be very flexible in designing your data architecture. Self-service, all your data consumers are trying to be self-service, right? So they don't want to come in the morning 9 o'clock just to wait till 10 o'clock for your data DBA to come or somebody to come to get you access to something. So he needs to have, of course, while giving that capability, the challenge is you have to also ensure the corporate security policies that you have in place. So unified security, and then you have to really ensure that the security doesn't come on ad hoc basis for each processing capability, and I'll explain what I mean by that in next few slides. So, from Oracle perspective, we strongly believe, and this is how we are actually, evolving our data platform to the next level. So we are looking at this architectural and platform consideration from these six key ways, right? Look at data sources. As I mentioned, we need to take care of all kind of data sets. So it's not about, I just want to highlight one thing. It's not about the 80s or 90s Oracle databases. Oracle database has evolved, e- extremely well. A lot of capabilities have come in, right, with the acquisition, with the new technologies coming in, and we have merged all of that into a central component, right? So it's about Oracle's Converged Database, right? So you can actually manage, you can actually store all these kind of data sources, JSON, XML, graph, whatnot, everything, NoSQL, everything comes into the same place, same engine, right? All these data types. Then you have different personas from a developer community perspective. You have the same traditional developers. You have developers writing, Java code. You have developer writing, R codes. You have developer writing Python. We also support a lot of open source connectivities, basically. So we're making it very open, right? And then if the fourth thing is workload. So it's no more about the traditional, OLTP or analytical workload. We are looking at microservices workload. We are looking at IoT workload. So we need to be one step ahead in the game to give our customers that extra comfort that whatever you have today is futuristic enough to kind of get additional workloads and additional data access patterns, very much open, and you can deploy them in the most flexible way without having to change a single piece of code that you have written yesterday, right? So if you're running it on premise, today you want to run in a mode which is on premise plus private cloud, and tomorrow you want to go public cloud, for part of the workloads, we have the same ecosystem, same data landscape ecosystem, same data platform, and we will not expect our users or the customers to change any of the code on that platform that you have written yesterday, right? So that's the key message I would like to pass. Apart from that, the platform has to be very secure. It's very secure platform. Resilience and high availability is our forte, and manageability is key. So we have a complete console based management capability, which takes care of all these kind of capabilities from a multi-structured perspective, right? Now, what I meant by that is, let me explain that in a very simple analogy, right? So, if you look at this, if you're the customer, you're looking at table based or file based thing. You start with a simple capability in Oracle database, tables, columns, and all that. Tomorrow you have JSON. Tomorrow you have XML and all that. You can start looking it into Oracle database. Next time you have a graph kind of a capability requirement. No, if you're not aware of it, you look at some single purpose database to kind of run your graph workloads on, right? And then that drives a lot of complication. Again, you have a NoSQL, you have a separate single purpose. So if you look at this, for phones, we had phones earlier. We have tape recorders and all that for listening music, calculators, separate maps, watches for looking at games, game consoles, right? And then calendars. We have all these organizers and all that. If you look at this is one way of doing data management, whereby it's very fragmented way. For each capability requirement, you look for a single purpose solution. Instead of that, what we say is you should look at a single multiple purpose single approach, right, where you have all of these things into your mobile phone. So this is what we are working toward. This is a key message I would like to pass, that whatever is your workload, whatever is your data type, whatever is your processing requirement, you need to really bring all of your data into single place, and don't create another silo file for your analytical ecosystem, right? So as I mentioned, you have two possible data strategies, either single purpose or you go for a converged database capability. And Oracle converged database capability will provide you all of that I talked about, both from a data type perspective, from a workload perspective, from a consumption perspective. Not only that, using the capability of Exadata, you can deploy it on three deployment models, either on-premise, which is the most traditional way of deploying Oracle Converged Database on Exadata, Oracle Autonomous Database on Exadata, or you can actually run in private cloud within your data center behind the firewall, and then take advantage of the cloud economics. Or the third way is basically deploying it on Oracle cloud infrastructure, which is the public cloud part of it, right? So more than a multi-model database, as I mentioned, just to summarize, we have capability, as we know, for many decades. Relational capability, we can have documents loaded to the database. Graph and spatial, it's not only about storage, we can process this also, right? And then from a workload perspective, you have not only traditional OLTP and analytics, but you also have next generation microservices, IoT, key value kind of database. We have machine learning, AI. So we just have the capability of running your machine learning libraries and AI libraries within the Oracle Converged database, running on top of Exadata appliance ecosystem in whatever deployment mode you want, right? So all that capability you have on the same platform, so you don't have to move the data out to run your processing algorithms on. You can actually kind of use what you already have and move the processing back to where your data resides. This is a very, very strong message I would like to pass, and we really believe on this, that our customers are going to take maximum advantage by moving the processing back to where your data resides. And in conjunction with that, you have to think about your data architecture by creating your data reservoir architecture, data lake architecture, whatever it is, right? So it's about positioning your data architecture in a way, but you have to leverage all these capabilities in your data architecture deployment patterns. So inherently, all these platforms, we have autonomous database, Exadata, scalability part of it, high availability, security, all that comes inherently within the platform. So you don't have to really go and ask for new things. So it's more than a multi-model database. All these structured, unstructured components, traditional and next generation workloads, with all these standard, enterprise capabilities which comes with this database. And this is the central piece of data architecture, which is Oracle Converged Database. So it is a multi-model database, and then you can deploy it onto the proven ecosystem, which is Exadata ecosystem, which is there since 2008, almost 14 years from now, right? Back from now. So if you look at it, just to I think most of you will be aware of this Exadata. It's an excellent innovation that has happened in 2008, and each new version of Exadata had brought new capabilities. And we have heard from the customers, we have listened to our customers, we have looked at their challenges, and we have evolved this platform to how it is shaped today. And it is in a very, very advanced stage, and very flexible in terms of deployment. You can actually deploy it on any three options that I mentioned before, right? So today we have, and then while we are deploying this, we are also working hand in hand with Intel, and taking advantage of the chip that Intel is bringing with each generation, and that's very much aligned, and we work very closely with Intel to kind of evolve this platform to the next level. And that should give you a comfort of how excellent is this particular appliance platform. And this is the best platform to run Oracle Converged Database for handling all your multi-structured analytical requirements end to end. Now, what's the vision? Just want to take a few minutes to talk about it. It delivers maximum performance, availability, and cost effectiveness, right? So it's ideal database hardware. It has database aware system software, which is the heart of it. And then it has automated management thing, right? It is always available. It can be deployed across on-premise, clouded customer, which is the private cloud deployment model, and then the Oracle Cloud, which is the public Oracle Cloud OCI thing, right? The key thing to note here is lot of the database innovation, the Oracle Converged Database innovation, which is happening, in line with the customer's business objective and requirement, is very much matched to the innovation which is happening in Exadata hardware, which is Exadata platform ecosystem. Okay, so if you look at on the left side, all these database innovations are actually linked and are done in hand and in line with the Exadata database machine innovations for maximum performance and scalability and the flexibility of it, right? So it's the key message I would like to pass here. Exadata is actually being co-engineered with the database innovation, and not only that, it also has the recovery appliance sitting next to it in case our customers would like to actually have a recovery appliance for DR purposes and all that kind of stuff. So we also have that, which is again engineered together with all these three things, right? So it's a most logical choice, we believe, for your business for handling multi-structured data analytics. Only complete solution co-engineered with the Oracle Converged Database. There are around, I think, if I'm not wrong, 120, 125 specific features of the database that is very specific to the Exadata platform only. You will not get it on any other platform, right? And then apart from that, as I mentioned, you have the recovery appliance also with it. You can eliminate, you can actually have a very lucrative TCO because you're eliminating do it yourself kind of activities on integration, all these kind of things, HA and all these kind of things. So all appliance, it's everything is done within it. Hardware part of it, security and network, everything is tightly integrated and coupled, and then you can just plug in and start running your application code. So you'd rather focus on your application design, application coding, than on the hardware part of it, or maintenance part of it. So Oracle database and the Exadata will take care of it automatically for you. Third, lower cost from consolidated systems. So if you have multiple things running, a multiple analytical ecosystem, or even operational ecosystem, you can bring into the same single appliance ecosystem to maximize your investment as well. So that's another way of looking at things. Or just to highlight before I forget, you can also mix and match your workloads. On the same appliance, you can run your OLTP and analytical capabilities, and we have complete confirmation that all you will have different kind of throughput as expected by you from these different workloads, to your expectation, right? So that is also configured like that. And then last but not the least, very important, we're seeing a trend, and I think all of us are seeing a trend to migrate to cloud. But in my view, personal view, you guys can disagree with me, that's fine. I don't see that everything will migrate to cloud. A lot of things will migrate to cloud from an analytical perspective, but this modern data platform ecosystem will be a hybrid one where you will have on-premise data, you will have private cloud and a public cloud part of it, depending on which part of the analytical landscape or data architecture you want to keep where, right? So every different organization, depending on which vertical that organization belongs to, they will have a different strategy for it. So what we think is, it is important for Oracle to think about customer and have a very clear path to the cloud. So we should not tie customers to on-premise only. So that's why when I mentioned that we are very flexible from a deployment perspective, that's about the cloud thing. So it's only system today. I don't know about any other system. Only system today to make the leap from on-premise to the cloud without you putting any of extra effort, right? So you can actually look at the deployment patterns of either Oracle database or Oracle's autonomous database service. You can run it on premise, which is the most traditional part of it. We have been running this for last 14-15 years very successfully. We still have customers out. This part of the business is a very lucrative business for us. We have many customers deploying Exadata on premise mode for both operational as well as the analytical workloads, for example. And then lot of customers are now, it's becoming very important today, Exadata cloud at customer. And just to highlight what this is the private deployment model of Exadata, same Exadata deployed in a private cloud approach, whereby you take advantage of the cloud deployment, the cloud economics, subscription based pricing and all that, but it is in your data center behind the firewall, and then managed by Oracle for some of the operational thing. Oracle will not have access to the data, but will manage some of the operational thing depending on what permission you give us, right? So this is how you can deploy it, in a private cloud ecosystem. Last but not the least, very much a public cloud on Oracle OCI infrastructure. We have multiple five regions right now, and we are actually increasing these regions everywhere. So you can deploy it actually on Oracle OCI. So or you can do it on all of that. In my view, for example, you can have your very raw tier of data lake or data reservoir on the on-premise, a part of it on Exadata clouded customer, and then you can have downstream applications depending on what regulatory approvals you have on the right side on the OCI thing. And you don't have to change a code from migrating from one deployment model to the next deployment model. So essentially, you have to develop once and then you can run everywhere. So you don't have to really change anything. This is a very key message I would like to leave here. So with this, what we think is we are actually providing increased agility. We are creating a data lake ecosystem. We have all the capabilities of AI ML for your experimentation purposes within the database itself. So you don't have to move the data out and consume that extra cost and then the complications and stuff like that. Rather, you move your data experimentation processing using the AI and ML libraries that we have integrated in another open source that we have integrated within the database itself. So you have your data in your data lake, you just move your processing to that tier itself, right? By doing that, what we are doing is we are actually uncovering new insight, and then some of these insights will be very valuable for your existing analytical ecosystem. Say for example, EDW and data marts, you can actually incorporate back into operational mode in the EDW and data mart for regular monitoring purposes, right? Third, but very important, it gives you improved scalability, not only in terms of volume or the processing part of it, but also functional capability. So suppose today you are not ready with AI or ML capabilities, or today you are not ready with graph based processing or storage, you can anytime add it. You don't have to go for any single purpose new database for it. All these capabilities are there within the same database engine that you will procure in the first place for your analytical purposes, right? Tomorrow you need to do a NoSQL key value kind of thing, you can again use the same thing. It's all inherently within the same engine itself, right? So by improved scalability, I don't only mean about having to handle high volume as the volume grows within your operational system, or having to kind of add more nodes and more processing capabilities in terms of memory, memory, CPU and all that, but also about the functional scalability part of it. And that's very important. You need to look at it from a holistic perspective, that you should also get this scalability part of it out of the park, right? So yeah, final thoughts before I close. I hope I'm on time. Data trends is continuing. I think we have just seen all of that. Data trends is continuing, but data generation is also growing exponentially from various ways, as we discussed. The global mobility is also using the data to create opportunities for greater alignment for the businesses. So different things are happening. But the key thing is, it is not about the data. I've been very passionate about this line. It's not about the data, it's about the business problem, right? So as a vendor, as Oracle, I don't want to come to you and say, you just get this Exadata, just get that. I want to be realistic to your business value requirements, and I'm pretty sure that the solution that we have is carefully thought after. It is basically very much innovated in line with the business expectation of our customers, and then we can give value and solve your critical business problems, right? Important thing is data centric culture. Very, very important. You need to actually align and elevate your data culture within your organization to take maximum advantage of the innovation that is happening around the data ecosystem, not only from Oracle, right? From everywhere, right? So you need to really look at your upscaling of your resources, trying to create a lot of things which is very centric to adding new data values and stuff like that. So data is the life and blood of the organization, and we can create a strategic advantage. Important is to use it very effectively, and that's the message I would like to leave to you before I close this presentation. Thank you so much, ACS team, for giving me this opportunity to talk about our way of modernizing the data platform by being very realistic to the business objectives, by being open to the open ecosystem, open source ecosystem, by being very flexible in terms of deploying it across different 3 deployment patterns, by being very open to all sort of data sets, multi-structured data sets, be it graph, be it relational, be it XML, be it JSON, be it key value, anything you talk about, the same data platform ecosystem will handle. So ultimately, Oracle Converged Database innovation is driving the path tomorrow to kind of higher scalability, both from a technical and functional sense. And then you can actually deploy, and then associated ecosystem around data ingestion, data access, and then data management, which is around security, which is around overall management part of it, which is around governance part of it, metadata management, master data management. All of these things are very much inherently and very strongly interlinked. And I think this is how we kind of want to partner with our customers. And Exadata is storing Oracle Converged Database with all these capabilities is charged enough to solve all of your business problems. And then we need to look at where you stand and how we can take you to the next level. So we also run a enterprise data management strategy workshops to help our customers understand their current ecosystem, and then we kind of take them to the next level in an intuitive way, in the most logical way possible. So with this, I think I would like to close my presentation, and I'm open to any questions that you might have. And if you don't, have those questions, you can actually look at my email ID. You can reach out to me anytime, and to the best of my ability, I would like to, partner, help with you, and answer with you with my views, right?